Cade let out a sigh as he swiftly guided Ari and Kin into the helicopter. The machine wasn't built for comfort. It was a sleek, compact vessel designed for speed and agility. With room for five, it was snug at best, every inch optimized for zipping through the narrow corridors between the city's towering skyscrapers. Ari hummed to herself as they boarded. Kin looked at her thoughtfully. He had no idea what she was humming. He rarely did. He was convinced they were all made-up songs at this point. The three of them began to secure their harnesses. You guys have not been briefed, the details or need to know, but in short, we need to rendezvous with Hector and Grant and secure the package, Cade said as the helicopter took off. They had only been in the air seconds when the pilot chimed over the intercom. Sir, there has been a change in plans from the higher-ups. Put me on the line, Cade said. The call transferred to Cade's earpiece. What is going on, sir? What is the change? Cade asked. Local law enforcement has called in a Code 5, Director Henzaki said. A Code 5 is a call for aid to the Special Defense Agency, SDA, in regards to a situation involving powered individuals or any situation that has escalated out of the control of law enforcement. Sir, if we take that call, we will be late to the rendezvous, Cade respectfully argued. Cade, you have the only helicopter available. Grant and Hector are not in any immediate danger, and if they were, they are competent agents, they can handle themselves. These people on the ground cannot, Director Henzaki said. Cade sighed. The only person who had the authority to interrupt this mission was Hansaki. That means this had made it all the way up the chain of command. This apparently was a big deal. Cade thought to himself. What is the situation, sir? Cade asked. The initial report is 3 monoburners and a transforming power type broke into a Nexus Corp warehouse, killing 6 guards before being forced to retreat. Currently, they are engaged in a high-speed chase. One of the men is a known terrorist who has eluded capture in the past. If this situation escalates into a hostage scenario, it would be the worst-case scenario. Despite the late hour, the city was alive with activity. The director was right. This situation needed to be handled swiftly. The rendezvous could wait. Cade made a quick decision and instructed the pilot to head towards the chase's location. The pilot acknowledged the order, and the helicopter veered sharply, slicing through the night sky with purpose. Mask up, Cade said as he gave them a rundown of the situation. 30 seconds until intercept them on the highway, sir, the pilot said. Cade responded. Pull us in front, let's finish this. We have better things to do. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Now we have an SDA helicopter on our tail. Damn it, the warehouse was supposed to have a few guards. There was like 30 people in there. This was a setup, Ram said as he looked out the back of the SUV's damaged window. This has gone to hell. There are bullet holes everywhere. I thought you said this thing was armored. Beck yelled. I said it was lightly armored. You don't ever listen? Ram yelled back. Calm down. We just have to make it to the tunnels as planned. They won't follow us. Stall whoever is in that helicopter. It doesn't seem to have any weapons, so it will have to land or get low enough to the ground for the occupants to do a mana-assisted jump. We just to blow right by them, Hitch said. Even if we make it back to the tunnels, I'm telling you it was a setup. We can get back to the boss, he will kill us anyways, Ram said. One situation at a time, Hitch said as he floored the accelerator. Cade looked out the helicopter door as the pilot pulled in front of the SUV. They were still pretty high up, about 12 stories, too high for a mana-assisted jump at this speed. Cade pulled his head back in the helicopter. Pull further ahead, we will make a roadblock. Where is Kinney? Cade asked. He just jumped out the other door, sir, Ari said, watching as the helicopter began to descend. She wasn't sure if it was his ability, but as long as Kin was aware he was going to take a hit, he could shake off blunt force impacts that would kill a person, powered or not. Kin was falling, sword in hand, using his body to make micro-adjustments to his fall speed and direction. That should do it. ×2, Kin muttered, activating his AXIOM and channeling mana to fortify his legs. His speed doubled, and he launched himself feet first into the SUV's hood. The impact drove the front end into the ground, sending the engine flying out from the bottom of the chassis and causing the vehicle to flip. Kin peered through the now vertical sunroof, seeing the occupants' faces frozen in terror and shock. Unsheathing his sword, he sliced the SUV in half, right between the front passengers' heads and the back passengers' feet. The vehicle split in two, flying over Kin's head before crashing and skidding to a violent stop. Smoke, dirt, and debris filled the air, obscuring his vision, so Kin held his ground. "Get it together, gents. Ram, go handle the two. We will handle the third one," Hitch yelled as he popped a smoke grenade. "Well, that was impressive. You didn't kill them, did you?" Ari said from next to Kin. Kin almost jumped. When did she even get here? And where is Cade? He thought to himself as he replied, "No, I did not kill them." "Why do you always ask that?" he said, annoyed. "Besides, you can just check with your mana." She swore it was not an axiom like his ability, and that anyone could technically learn it, but boy, was it handy. "You are extremely violent, everyone knows that," she replied. "Also, they are alive, and they are about to shoot us." Kin comedically stepped behind Ari, using her as a shield. "Don't be lazy, make your own mana shield," Ari quipped. "I like yours better," Kin replied. Ari smirked and made a giant circular shield in front of them, right as the gunfire erupted and impacted the shield. "One of them just AXIOM transformed to a giant walking dog with a giant axe," Ari said. Kin still could not see well. It seems they dropped a smoke grenade in the chaos, he thought to himself. "He's coming," Ari said. Kin and Ari darted apart as the beast's colossal axe smashed into the ground, obliterating the pavement in a shower of rubble. It moved with a speed that defied its hulking, werewolf-like form, far faster than anyone would expect. With a savage roar, the beast lunged at Ari. Seizing the moment, Kin dove low, aiming for its legs. In a blur, it swung its oversized axe toward him instead. Kin raised his sword just in time to block, but the impact sent him spiraling through the air. Ari dodged back and smirked as it turned its gaze back to her. Suddenly, chains shot out from the thinning smoke, coiling around its neck and torso, dragging it back into the swirling haze. Cade appeared out of the smoke with all four of the crew chained similarly to the werewolf. "What made you think you could block that attack?" Kin, his axe was literally person-sized, Ari said, laughing. "I miscalculated. Never mind me, but that's a lion, Ari, not a dog. And what took you so long, Cade?" Kin said, knocking the dust off his clothes. Ari looked at the now tied-up criminal. "Definitely a dog, and 100% sure." Ram looked down. "Am a lion," he mumbled. Cade tightened the chains. "I don't really care, transform back to a human or it'll make you," Cade said, and Ram begrudgingly complied. Cade looked at Kin. "Obviously, I was fighting the one in charge." Cade replied, "Kin." And Ari looked at each other, shrugging their shoulders simultaneously. "Everyone knows that the strongest is the boss, and one of the guys I fought in the smoke was way stronger than this guy." Ari replied, "But you beat him in like 2 seconds. Cade, looking proud of himself, said, "In those 2 seconds, he was really strong, though." Unable to tell if he was joking or serious from Cade's tone, Kin assumed it was a mixture of both and laughed. Grant tapped his hand on the dash nervously as they waited for the front gate to scan their mana signatures. The anticipation hung heavy in the air, and Hector's pulse quickened. The gate swung open, revealing a winding road that led to the imposing 3-story structure. Hector stepped out of the car, feeling the cool night air wrap around him. Grant followed suit, and they exchanged glances. "They are late," Grant remarked, checking his watch. Hector nodded. "I'm sure they will be here, especially under these circumstances." The mansion that had been doubling as a safe house loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. Located well outside of the city, the surrounding area was covered in trees and darkness. They had just met with an informant that gave them coded documents, observations, and suspicions. Their informant had spent 6 months undercover, cut off from communication with them, and now they stood at the end. They ascended to the 2nd floor, entering the security room. Monitors bathed the space in an eerie blue glow. Grant assessed the system, his eyes flickering over glitchy perimeter sensors. Hector leaned against a desk, envelope in hand, the culmination of their covert investigation. "It's nice to be done with this mission," Grant said, breaking the silence. Hector agreed, as he taped the envelope under the desk. The envelope held their hard-earned knowledge. He felt it lacked a critical breakthrough. Still, he wouldn't return empty-handed, hoping one of the coded documents would be the key they needed. Hector's gaze fell on the small arms rack. 6 months undercover without weapons and missions had dulled their instincts. He didn't always rely on firearms, but tonight they needed every advantage. He selected 2 pistols, loaded both, and handed one to Grant. The weight felt familiar, reassuring. He thought to himself. And then, the unexpected. "Good evening." A chilling voice from the doorway materialized, a phantom in a crimson Oni mask. Grant's pistol rose, but the man evaded the bullets effortlessly. His cloak flowed like liquid shadow as he glided into the dim hallway. "Who are you?" Hector demanded, stalling for time. "A remnant of the past." Hector had instinctively activated his mana back when he heard Remnant's voice, feeling its energy surge. Grant, less experienced and slower to activate his mana, realized a sudden pain in his shoulder disrupted his focus. A concealed throwing knife was embedded inside. Remnant was faster than they'd anticipated. Grant removed the blade, jaw clenched. Remnant stood there 20 yards away, his eyes fixed on them. Hector's mind raced. Remnant summoned a small round black, but almost see-through mana shield around his arm, and rushed forward, his eyes calculating. His movements were beyond fluid. Grant's shoulder throbbed, but he squared his stance. Had I activated his mana sooner, this wound wouldn't be so deep. The thought gnawed at him, but there was no time for regrets. He yanked the knife out. He'd learned from Hector, fought alongside him in countless skirmishes. Their teamwork, their training, it all came down to this. And they fired, bullets ricocheting off his mana shield. Hector stood shoulder to shoulder with Grant, their resolve unyielding. The man was fast, impossibly fast, but Hector's training had prepared him for this. He sidestepped, firing off shots in a calculated pattern to herd the assailant into a corner. Grant, despite the pain, followed Hector's lead, his own shots ringing out in the dimly lit corridor. Remnant was relentless, his shield absorbing the impact of the bullets. But Hector noticed something, a slight flicker in the shield with every hit. It was weakening. "Aim for the same spot," he shouted to Grant, who nodded and adjusted his aim. Together, they focused their fire on one point of the shield. The flicker grew into a stutter, and then, with a final shot from Hector's pistol, the shield shattered. The man, however, was too fast. The man reached Grant, pulled out a short sword, and slashed at him, narrowly missing his neck. The man spun using his momentum and kicked Grant in the wounded shoulder, sending him flying into the wall, cracking it. Grant, reeling from the impact against the wall, felt the warm trickle of blood down his arm. His vision blurred, but his resolve didn't waver. Hector's mana surged, his AXIOM igniting the air around him as he summoned twin short swords, their blades a dance of reddish-orange flames. Despite their fiery nature, they held a solid form, gleaming with an inner strength. He tilted his head, a smirk of confidence showing. With a burst of speed that blurred his form, determination fueling his movements. Hector charged, his fiery blades slicing through the air, each swing a hair's breadth from its mark. Grant, lacking an AXIOM of his own, compensated with raw power, his body a conduit for mana that amplified his strength beyond mortal limits. His fists, encased in a shimmering mana shield, became instruments of destruction, leaving spiderweb fractures on the stone floor with each step. The masked man, an enigma wrapped in shadows, deftly countered Hector's fiery onslaught by summoning another shield, and with a sword parried Grant's relentless punches with a sword. Grant's mana-wrapped fist protected him from the blade's edge, but frustration gnawed at him. They had yet to land a single blow. Seizing an opening in the flurry of blows, Grant aimed a sweeping kick at the man's legs. Remnant, with a grace that belied his focus on Grant, simply lifted his leg, allowing the attack to pass harmlessly beneath. He unleashed a punishing kick that sent Grant crashing through a wall, debris cascading into the adjacent room. In that moment of distraction, Hector's eyes narrowed. This was the opening he had been waiting for. Now, without Grant in the line of fire, he muttered. His swords vanished, replaced by a glowing red palm that pulsed with untamed energy. He stepped forward, pressing his palm against the black mana shield. Remnant's eyes, visible behind his mask, widened, a glimpse of emotion. Hector, with his fiery swords extinguished, now stood with a brightly glowing palm, the heat of his AXIOM palpable in the air. He unleashed the full might of his power, a giant fireball that surged forward like a comet, just mere inches from the man. "It's hopeless," he whispered as he was engulfed, that sent a shiver down Hector's spine. The explosion that followed was deafening. The back wall of the mansion crumbled, and the night sky was illuminated with an orange glow. Debris rained down, and for a moment, everything was chaos. When the dust settled, Hector stood amidst the rubble, his chest heaving with exertion. The man was nowhere to be seen, blown clear by the force of the explosion. Breathless, Hector dropped to one knee, the building's foundations trembling from the blast. As the dust settled, "Thanks for taking that hit, Grant. Now get up. That kick wasn't that strong." Hector laughed as he rose, annoyance flickering within him. Despite the ferocity of their battle, all they had gleaned was a cryptic phrase. He pondered, hearing Grant stir in the next room. The masked man emerged, his clothing singed but his composure intact. Hector reignited his AXIOM, his sword blazing to life once more. He forced calm into his mind. He somehow teleported to Grant's to finish him. "Why wait to teleport?" Hector asked, stalling for time. "The escort should be here any time now," he thought. "I can only teleport to blood," Remnant replied, his voice devoid of emotion. Hector readied himself for round two. "You sure are cocky. I did not really expect me to just tell me how it worked." Remnant shrugged his shoulders. "Are you done stalling now?" Remnant said as he threw a small red orb at Hector. He dodged to the side to avoid it, thinking it was some sort of attack. Remnant phased to the orb. Hector reacted with impressive speed and tried to parry but was still impaled in the stomach. Hector lashed out with one last burst of power, swinging his blades at Remnant. He dodged back while removing his sword from Hector's stomach, narrowly avoiding getting his own head cut off. Despair washed over Hector as his fire swords began wavering. "We never stood a chance," he admitted to himself, the realization heavy in his heart. Remnant approached, his steps measured, his purpose clear. With a swift, decisive motion, he cut off Hector's head. The helicopter blades sliced through the night sky, racing towards the mansion. Barely above the trees below, in the dim glow of the helicopter's console, Cade surveyed the landscape with a strong gaze. Ari, with a playful glint in her eye, was back to humming. "Hector will be so mad we are late," she quipped at Kin. Leaning back with feigned nonchalance, replied, "Oh, we will never hear the end of it." As the night enveloped them, a fleeting bright orange glow pierced the distant darkness, only to vanish as swiftly as it appeared. Cade's eyes narrowed, alert to the anomaly. "Remain alert," he cautioned, his gaze never leaving the horizon. That light was no accident. It could be trouble. Judging by the speed, they were still a minute away. The helicopter neared its destination, the dimly lit mansion a shadowy figure against the starless sky. The fleeting orange glow had been a harbinger, and Cade's instincts were on high alert. "Stay alert," instructed, his voice a steady command. As the mansion drew closer, the gaping hole in the rear wall came into view. The trio, aware that a battle must have taken place just moments prior, grew anxious. The pilot's voice, a calm presence amidst the tension, broke through the cabin's silence. "Change of plans. Prepare for rooftop entry. I will land once the site is secure." The team readied themselves, mana coursing through their veins, strengthening their resolve and their bodies for the impact. "On my count," Cade said, his gaze locked on the target. 3, 2, 1, jump." With the precision of seasoned operatives, they leaped from the helicopter, mana flaring. The wind howled, but their descent was controlled, their bodies fortified by the energy. Ari and Cade landed atop the mansion with the grace a cat, the mana absorbing the shock of their fall. Ari in particular was almost silent. Kin landed with the grace of a giant walking on eggshells. As the helicopter hovered above, the pilot and co-pilot watched with a mix of admiration and anticipation. The team on the ground was now out of sight, but their mission was just beginning. The co-pilot turned back to the controls, ready to provide support or a quick extraction if needed. Ari sent out pulse of mana, and she closed her eyes, focusing her energy. This was a much wider area than when she used this ability earlier. A pulse of mana radiated from her, cascading through the mansion like a wave of sonar. The vibrations returned to her, carrying with them the layout of the building, the positions of any occupants, and the faint echo of mana within the walls. Ari's mastery over mana was indeed a rare gift. Her ability to manipulate it with such precision and creativity was unparalleled, a testament to her innate talent and rigorous training. It was these skills that made her an invaluable member of the team, and in moments like these, her expertise could very well be the difference between success and failure. As Kin observed Ari's effortless control, he could not help but feel a sense of awe mixed with a touch of respectful envy. Her finesse with mana was not just a skill, it was an art form. The mansion, now silent, bore the scars of chaos. Ari's voice, steady and clear, cut through the stillness, confirming the absence of threats. As the trio descended through Hector's makeshift entry, the remnants of battle clung to the walls, telling a tale of ferocity and desperation. Kin, his stoic facade crumbling, stood before Hector's lifeless form, a man who had been an adoptive father and mentor to him since he was brought to the agency. Cade offered a moment of silence, his gaze lingering on Grant, who remained secluded in the adjacent room. With a heavy heart, he summoned for a cleanup crew. The hallway, now a crime scene, Cade now stood studying the scene for clues. Ari curiously eyed Hector's ring, a faint glow emitting from it. Kin, with a reverence born of loss, knelt gently liberated the ring from its owner's grasp. Found it, Ari announced from the security room. The envelope, Hector's last contingency, she noted that the security had been destroyed, presumably to get rid of the video footage. Let's finish up, Cade said as he called for extraction. The trio made their way back to the roof. The helicopter hovered a few feet above the roof. The team boarded, Kin taking one last solemn look at the mansion